heavyweight champion, martial arts legend, and the greatest fighter of all time, Joe Louis. And we're going to go head-to-head with some of the toughest questions you can ask about martial arts.
Go right ahead. I like to get into some in-depth subjects and talk about some things which will activate the thinking processes of the other martial artists out there, such as, let's talk about some things like self-esteem, self-confidence. What is missing in the martial arts schools today? Are people really teaching kids how to be better people? Are they really teaching them self-confidence or just confidence in the techniques? And let's get into the mixed martial art area, because that's going to be a major sport someday. And let's talk about some of their weaknesses.
I'm Alan Branch, and we're coming up in depth with Joe Louis. Coming up next.
One of the things we teach is strategies. It's kind of a elusive subject. A lot of people don't talk about it. And to have a good strategy, you need to have good technique, both defensively and offensively, and the right tactics to work against the right type of an opponent. In our manual, we list, I say, like 9 types of fighters, and I just want to go down the list. We talk about how to fight a taller fighter. Then a second, we talk about the croucher, grappler. Then you got the rusher, the explosive type, like an animal that pounces on you in the jungle. Then you got the jabber, or what you might call a good lead leg sharpshooter. Then of course you got the southpaw. Next you have what we call the slugger, or the inside trench fighter. Then of course you got the counter fighter, or what we call the person who tries to entrap you, what we call the trapper. Then you got the runner, what we call the cat and mouse, the elusive type fighter. And then you got what you may call a hard kicker. Then there's other types, like subcategories. For example, you may call it inside fighter. Somebody who's a headhunter. You got people who switch it a lot. You got people who are like wild, very unorthodox, kind of hard to catch up with. My favorite, of course, is the pressure fighter. Then, of course, you've got people who may be more experienced or highly skilled. And you've got to figure out what kind of strategy I'm going to use against each of these different types of opponents. And what principles am I going to use, what tactics am I going to use. And I just recently wrote down a list of strategic principles. That's 12 of them that I think people should work with. I'll start off. Number 1 is, if you're working on a strategy, is a principle to remember is how to neutralize your opponent's position. That's really important. Number 2, how to prevent your opponent from getting set. Of course, those two work hand in hand. Then number 3, how to confuse your opponent. Basically, that's like how you break his rhythm. Number 4, how to take an opponent out of his fight plan. Number 5, how to seize the offensive, get the momentum of the fight going in your favor. Number 6, how to establish your rhythm and also maintain it. 7, how to take away his offense. You got a handcuff. Guy's got a good left hook, how to take away his left hook. Guy's got a good side kick, how to take away his side kick. Number 8, how the best time targeting, attacking his defensive weakness. Same thing in the military. You always attack the person where he's weak. Number 9, how to get off first and also prevent your opponent from doing the same. Number 10, how to best back your opponent up. We all know when you back somebody up, most people, I'd say 9 out of 10 fighters, can't fight when you back them up. 11, how to prepare to best skillfully execute effective tactics to resolve any attribute advantage of your opponent, such as speed, reach, power, size, experience, skill, confidence, conditioning, heart, accuracy, or strength. And then, of course, number 12, I think is the most important, is how to prepare developing, researching, and executing time-tested tactics designed to work best against opponent's particular fighting style. That gets back into the type of opponent you're going to fight, what strategy, what tactics would have best work against that particular type of opponent. For example, let's take the tall opponent, the first one I mentioned. If he's got a good jab, which a lot of them do, and a good lead leg kick, what you want to do is fight him when you're on the outside, keep moving side to side. They say laterally, but if you move laterally, you actually move away from your opponent. So you're actually moving counterclockwise and clockwise, what we call arcing. And On the inside, you want to learn to fight the tall opponent from the pocket, so you got to figure out how to get in the pocket and stay in the pocket. That would be an example of how you fight a tall opponent. Now you take over with your questions. It's a lot to think about.
How do you teach people to handle fear?
First step is just the implication of the way you phrase that question. It sounds like fear is a problem. Fear is not a problem. Fear is nothing more than a signal to let you know how much something out there is of value or disvalue to you. So fear is a friend of yours. Learn to embrace it, learn to use it as a tool to help you recognize what's out there and what is inside, what is not outside, what is also not within yourself. So I teach people to use fear as a tool to awaken oneself, to make yourself more aware, to make yourself more conscious. The more conscious, more aware you are, the easier it is for you to understand and accept being able to detect what type of opponent is in front of you, what are his strong points, what are his weak points, and once you start disowning that fear or suppressing it or repressing it, whatever you want to say, just say disowning it. It's like putting on a blindfold. You can't see really what's in front of you. And if you can't see what's in front of you, you're not going to see the punches, you're not going to see the kicks coming toward you. So I teach people to first breathe, feel yourself, become very cognizant, become very aware of the fear, and learn to embrace it, learn to use it as a tool. It's actually your partner. It's not something that's going to work against you. Fear does not make you weak. All you have to think of a good definition of the word courage. All courage is just staying one step ahead of the fear. Makes it simple.
What is and how do you build confidence?
I'll give you a definition. Our definition of confidence is your ability to demonstrate your skills with profound efficacy and absolute certainty while being able to maintain not only a willingness but an eagerness to remain engaged in the face of any adversity and against overwhelming odds. Didn't think I could repeat that, did you?
That's pretty good.
I wrote the manual. That's our definition of confidence. First, let's talk about self-esteem. Self-esteem is the concept which gives rise to the concept self-confidence. So self-esteem comes first. I basically work in six different directions to create a person's self-esteem. First, make yourself more conscious, living conscious. By being more conscious, you become more aware. Okay? So the more aware you are, the easier it is for you to become more accepting of things which you are aware of. So that's like 3 steps. Then as I learn to accept things, I take responsibility for them. And as I take responsibility for them, I learn to live with integrity and I learn to live with dignity. That would be a 5th step. And then of course the last step is that which I take responsibility for, I learn to assert myself for. I take action on it. All right? So basically those 6 steps create what we call self-esteem. And out of creating self-esteem, it gives rise to this thing called self-confidence. There's a difference between self-confidence and confidence in the efficacy of your execution. Somebody may be able to throw a side kick straight up in the air. Somebody may be able to kick the bag and level that bag parallel and they say, oh wow, he's got great confidence. Say, well, he's got confidence in the execution of his skills, but real confidence is being able to take that attribute and be able to take it into another context. For example, I know men who are very successful running a business, and they dictate orders to maybe a couple of hundred people, a couple of thousand people when they're working in the office. But as soon as they come home to the little old lady at night, you know, and she says, griping about maybe one of her kids, well, so-and-so came home with a deal with a report card. Right away he falls apart because he has no confidence, the same kind of confidence he had running that business as how to execute when he comes into the household. So real confidence goes from one context to the other to the other. And basically that's what we're trying to teach in martial arts. And I think one of the first steps is learning to be aware of the self. Then out of being aware of the self, you learn to trust self. And out of that, I think the real discipline we learn in martial arts is self-discipline. And without self-discipline, nothing else really has any meaning. You're supposed to say, great answer.
I'll say that at the end.
Making it up.
how have you been able to maintain your speed and endurance as you've gotten older?
Oh, you get fine. Give me an easy question. I guess God's on my side. I don't know. Once you acquire a certain physical attribute, such as speed, remember there's different types of speed. What I try to do as I get older is not necessarily try to hold on to my speed, although just training once or twice a week is all it takes to hold on to it. Keeping your muscles strong, staying in shape, don't put on the extra body weight, make sure you warm up properly. And what I try to do is I try to slow down the other person in order to make myself look faster. In other words, how do I make my opponent or my partner, whoever I work with, cause him to maybe mentally stumble so he appears to function in such a way that he's actually slower, but you can't tell he's slower, therefore I look actually quicker.
You did just make that up, didn't you?
Just now? No, that's true. Here's an example. I used to go in the gym all the time. This chair squeaks, but that's it. I used to go in the gym all the time, and when I was getting into my 50s, I think my last exhibition, I was 51 or 52. I identified one of my sparring partners, John Maynard, up in Connecticut. But my last professional exhibition match, when I was age 49, I fought the former world boxing champion Leon Spinks in Birmingham, England. And when I was training for that fight, I was sparring my buddy Gary Gardner, who's a 5-time Golden Gloves champion. I used to go in the gym and I would pull tricks on him to kind of get him out of his rhythm. For example, I would hide his socks, and I'd be up in the gym warming up, getting warmed up, and he's spending all his warm-up time looking for his socks. I'd say, Gary, come on, my wife wants me to hurry to get home. I got to take the kids somewhere, blah, blah, blah. And so he'd jump in the ring without warming up, and I'd get the jump on it that way. Sometimes I always notice if I take my sparring partners and I show them a new drill, okay? Like, for example, I remember one time I showed Gary how not to let your opponent get set, how to control his set point, and keep the jab working, bum in his face. And whenever I'm showing somebody something new before I spar them, that throws their focus off a little bit. So they're sort of internally focusing, sort of introspective when they're sparring me and not really paying attention to me. And their focus kind of goes in and out from being extrospective to introspective, extrospective, and that flushing back and forth of their focusing throws their timing off and allows me to be a little quicker. So I play a lot of games like that to maintain my speed. Okay. I'm naturally fast anyway.
So what are the best drills or ways to improve or increase speed for someone who's looking to
you want me to write a book? Look at what type of speed you want to work on. You got your rate of speed, which is what we call the fastness. And then, of course, the most important speed is the suddenness, the explosiveness of your trigger squeeze. Okay? So I refer to that as explosiveness. So first thing is learn how to relax. The more relaxed you are, like for example, I relax my wrist, the faster I can fan it back and forth. But if I tighten the muscles up, it's hard to move it fast. So relaxation is very important for speed, especially the trigger squeeze. When I used to work with Bruce Lee, we worked on 2 words: relaxed explosiveness. Okay. In other words, simultaneous explosiveness. So you want to be completely relaxed, and then on your trigger squeeze, try to explode from a relaxed posture. It's very difficult because all of our lives, especially athletes who work in different sports, for example, if I'm swinging a baseball bat, you got to squeeze the bat before you squeeze the trigger to swing the bat. If I'm throwing the ball, I got to squeeze the ball before I throw it. Especially in weightlifting, they teach you to tighten up the muscles before you make the initial move. And in a sport like ours, and it's the only sport in the world where you have that split-second timing, where you're this close to somebody, and you've got a split second before, when somebody squeezes the trigger, throw a punch and kick, you've only got a split second to react. There's no timing, speed required in any other sport in the world like this. So if you spend all your life tightening up a muscle before you move, it's going to work in reverse of what you're trying to accomplish in a fight, which is trying to relax first and then move. And that is what I worked on most. If I'm standing in front of a heavy bag, I try to relax and just let the hand meet the bag. I'm not trying to push on the bag when I hit it, which is a problem a lot of people have. If I'm in front of a double end bag or a speed bag, the same thing. And probably the best place to work on that is with a coach, having the coach stand in front of you with mitts. What we try to do in our system is the attributes we work on in order. We work on rhythm first. Rhythm is another word for the word motion. It basically means the same thing. Rhythm produces timing. Timing is what levels the playing field in the fight game. And the third attribute we work on is the mental thing. We call it judgment. Judgment will be things like, look at my opponent. What tactic am I going to use to defeat this opponent? Am I going to go in the front door? Am I going to go in the back door? Am I going to use defensive time and offensive time? What's going to be my number one attitude technique? If he's a croucher, I'm going to learn how to work angles on him. If he's a tall opponent, I'm going to learn how to move lateral on the outside and work from the pocket on the inside. So all those things are what we call judgment skills. Then the fourth thing you work on is then you start working on your speed. And those four attributes build what we call accuracy. And accuracy is the last thing you work on. So I keep those principles in mind, that particular order, those attribute orders, when I'm trying to increase my speed. There's dozens of drills that you can work on, but the main thing is the breath control and the relaxation of the body, and then try to silence the mind. In the split second the mind goes silent, you kind of have a post-hypnotic suggestion where you told your body to cue that trigger squeeze the instant the mind goes silent. You can't think, move, and then move, because all thoughts, all feelings are past tense. And as you think, move, and then try to move, your timing is off. And when your timing is off, you're dead. You need timing to defeat somebody who's faster than you. You need timing to defeat somebody who's stronger and who has more power than you. Timing is the one attribute which levels the playing field in the fight game. That's why I try to teach all my guys. Timing and rhythm, timing and rhythm, timing. Forget about how fast you are. Forget about how hard you hit. Everybody works on speed and power a little bit too often, and they forget about the thing which makes speed and accuracy have meaning, that is timing.
The best way to develop that?
Oh, now you get deep. Everything you do is based on timing. I try to teach three types of timing. I have defensive timing, offensive timing, which are the primary two. Let me give you an example. Let's say, for example, your black belt here, Jason's got a real good sidekick. Just for the sake of argument. Okay, I don't even know if he can kick. Say he's got a good sidekick. So he's got a real fabulous trigger squeeze. You can't see it coming. He's so fast. He's fast off the firing line. He's explosive. He's got good penetration skills. And when he pops you with it, he's like a sharpshooter. He can really set you back. He can stop you in your tracks. Well, somebody like that, I'd be afraid of using offensive time, which means offensive time is what we call going in the front door. I'd be afraid of trying to beat him to the draw. Okay, in other words, the instant I sense he's getting ready to throw the kick, try to beat him to the draw, try to out-kick him or out-punch him. I'd probably be afraid of doing it because I'd walk into that side kick he is. So what I would do instead is I would try to lure him into a trap, make him think I'm afraid of him, try to draw that side kick and try to move away from it, making him feel that I'm afraid of it. So I'm kind of pulling him into a trap, like, come on here, I ain't going to hurt you. And then soon you get too close to me, it's happy. So I have him fire a couple of kicks at me, and then I'll see if he's working in behind his kick. So after he fires a kick, does he follow through with a punch? Or does he kind of kick and pause? Does he kick, and does he have good recovery speed? Because I know he's got a great release speed. So he's got great release, but he's recovering, what we call R&R, release, recover, release, recover. So if he's not working in behind his kick, if he's got a little dead space at the end of his kick, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to notice that. Sure, he's got a good kick, but he doesn't work in behind his kick. So if he doesn't work in behind his kick, I'm going to work in behind his kick with a counter. So that would be what I call defensive timing. And that's how I would work on improving my timing. Look where he has defensive gaps. And that's where I'm going to fill in the offense. If he's got a weakness behind his straight right hand, like Muhammad Ali, when Muhammad Ali threw a right hand, he would follow the punch in, and he would kind of lean a little forward off balance. That's why he rarely came back with a left hook. I remember the great boxing coach Customata telling me that would be how he would teach his fighters, trying to get me to come train with him. To beat Ali, Ali would throw the right hand, and then you'd slip to your outside, set Ali up for a left hook to deliver, and come underneath and back over top with a double hook. So that would be an example again of how I would come in the back door behind somebody who's got a good punch, but they've got slow recovery speed. He's got a good punch, but he doesn't work in behind the right hand. Jason's got a good side kick, but he doesn't work in behind his side kick. So I'm going to work in behind him. That would be an example of how I'd use timing to overcome somebody who has great initial speed. Now, somebody who does have good initial speed, but he's got good recovery speed, what I'm going to do is I'm going to beat him through the draw. The instant I see he's getting ready to fire a side kick and getting ready to fire a straight right hand, I'm going to beat him through the draw. The third type of timing I would use is what we call interception timing. That means if a person is throwing like a straight right hand, I would intercept the right hand, come right over the top with the left hook at the same time. Guy's got a good jab. As soon as he squeezes the trigger on the straight jab, I'd cancel out. I'd go right straight across the top with what we call a right cross. Cross means to go across the top of the jab. So that would be what we call interception timing. So I observe and let the guy tell me, where is this timing good, where is this timing weak? And I take advantage of the weak point. So I create drills to work on interception timing, defensive timing, and offensive timing.
What do you think is next in martial arts? And if you were to open a martial arts school or to teach a martial arts program, what do you think would be coming up? What would it be called? And what would be the...
I always look at the world like a cone. Down at the very bottom of the pit, we've got martial arts. And then as you come up, martial arts evolves into sports. Sports are bigger than martial arts. And then out of sports, we go into what we call the fitness industry. The fitness industry is bigger than sports. And then out of the fitness industry, that grows into entertainment. See, so the bigger up the cone you go, the broader the field gets. So I want to try to bring in the world entertainment into the world of martial arts. I want to bring in the world fitness into the world of martial arts. Fitness, I think of fitness as mental fitness, continued exercise in the mind, and physical fitness, continued exercise of the body, keeping the two working together. For example, I'm not just going to show a person how to throw a side kick, how to throw a punch, how to do a takedown, how to do a sit-out armbar. I want them to work on the mental processes which enable them to acquire that confidence, which gives them the energy to make those techniques effective. See, and without that energy, you're shooting blanks. So that would be the direction I would go. And I think the next thing in the martial arts is we've got to get into what I call psychological energies or mental energies, and how to incorporate those into the execution of our skills, bringing the two together. So we exercise the mind, simultaneously we exercise the body. So that would be the direction I would go into. But definitely you got to bring fitness in there, because what good is the body throwing kicks, throwing punches, if you don't develop the body itself first? As a matter of fact, I would say before anybody embarks on any kind of martial arts program, I would say do some cardio and strength training for at least 4 to 6 months. Like lifting weights would be really good before you got into the martial arts program itself.
MMA right now is one of the larger fields in martial arts. If you were training for that, if you were training for MMA now, what would you focus on? What would your main focus be? Looking at the styles and the way the fights are turning out.
I would do the same thing I've been doing. The most important thing is make sure I train harder than anybody else. Always did. If I went back to my fighting style, people say, why did you win? This is going to be a long answer. There are people who, when I used to fight, who had as good a technique as I, and some who had better technique, especially the guys who could kick high. There are guys who were better punchers than me, especially guys who threw combinations, because I usually just nail you one punch. You didn't see it coming. If I got you, the fight was over. So that's all I had to rely on. There were guys who trained hard. There were guys who had good bodies. There are people who had a lot of things which I didn't have, but 2 things I had that I never faced. No one could keep up with my will. Number one. Number two, no one could keep up with the pace I set. So I always made sure I had something extra that no one worked on. So that was what I would go back to now if I was still training. I look at mixed martial arts today. There are a lot of weaknesses out there. For example, whenever they're attacked, they always seem to line up straight in front of each other. Sometimes you'll see a guy start to move laterally, start to circle, but he only does that for about 30 seconds of the first round. After that, he goes right back to the old stuff. He lines up straight in front of a person who's a better puncher, better kicking, and he bites to dust because that's not the tactic, that's not the strategy he should use against that particular type of opponent. You don't see good hand techniques. For example, in boxing, the jab is the technique which sets up everything. You set the table with the jab, you sit down to eat with the follow-up techniques. I don't see any good jabbing out there. I see him throwing a jab, but everybody always jabs straight for the head. A shorter guy, when you attack, you jab the chest, you do not jab the head. You want a double jab, triple jab. Line them up with a jab, follow through the straight right hand. Line them up with a jab, step out, create an angle, come through with the cross-cut kick or the inside cross-cut kick. I don't see that taking place. I rarely see any faking. You don't see any body punching. Never see anybody drop with a body punch. I remember my mind goes blank right now. But Ernesto Hoost dropped what was the big guy's name? 375 pounds. Sap with a liver shot. It got back up, but Ernesto Hoost wasn't turning his hips into the liver butt. He was punching with the shoulders. So when you throw a punch, you rotate the hip through the center line before you release the punch. No one's punching like that in mixed martial arts today. Okay, they go into a boxing gym, but they think they can learn how to box in a year or two. At best, you might be an adequate amateur boxer after maybe 2-3 years of boxing experience. You can't learn to box in 3 or 4 months. You can't take a few private lessons and think, now I know how to box. It takes years to do that. Most good amateur boxing gyms, they spend 4 to 6 months just teaching you how to fire the jab before they start showing you how to put the straight right hand behind it. You're spending at least 6-8 months just learning those 2 outside punches, the jab, straight right hand, before they start showing you how to throw inside punches like an uppercut, a 45, or a hook. You go into most cardio classes, most mixed martial art gyms, they're showing guys how to throw uppercuts and hooks the very first week they're in the school. Only an idiot would teach somebody that way, but that's the way they're doing it. The cut kicks, when you fire like a combination cut kick, like a right cut kick, come back with a left cut kick, you always create the angle before you kick, When you fire knee strikes, you see them throwing knees the same way, knee strike, knee strike. You fire a knee, you want to create an angle, then come back with a second knee. If you can hit the rectus femoris muscle right in that little nerve center, or right in that iliopsoas there at the hip, and then you want to come back with maybe an inside cut kick, a knee strike. You create an angle between those two knee strikes. No one's doing that. You don't see anyone creating angles. You don't see anybody setting anybody up. So what I would do now, if I were training, I would focus in on those weaknesses. If I've got a particular opponent I'm getting ready to fight, I'm going to know his weaknesses, I'm going to know his strengths, I'm going to handcuff his strengths, I'm going to seize the advantage over his weaknesses. And if I'm teaching people, I would teach people to take advantage of the things that they're not doing in mixed martial arts. Yeah, they've got great chokeholds, they've got great knee bars, they've got great triangle chokes, they've got great sit-up arm bars. The takedowns are a little sloppy. One of the main weaknesses I see is when a person starts to shoot, before somebody could submit me, you got to do 3 things. One, you got to get 2 hands on me to take me to the ground. I'm not going to the ground with 1 hand, okay? And before you get 2 hands on me, I know I can hit you at least once. Now, I'm not going to try to hit you to stop you. I just want to try to cut you and let you know I'm there. Right? Now, once you get 2 hands on me, that's step 1. Now you got to take me to the ground. That's step 2. You got to get me down. Now, before you get me down, I'm going to hit you a second time. And the second time, I'm going to cut you twice. Now, before you can submit me, I don't know anybody can submit me with 1 hand. You need 2 hands to submit me. That's step 3. And before you get that step 3, I'm going to hit you again. All right? Now, in fact, I'm going to hit you 3 times before you get to that second step. So I only need 1 hand to cut you. I only need one hand to locate you, and I only need one hand to stop you. You need two hands. And you need two hands, you got to go through 3 steps before you can submit me. Now, I would point that phenomena out to my students, and that's the way I would train. You got to go through step 1, step 2, step 3 to beat me. I got one technique. And I'm going to specialize today. I don't care who it is. You start to approach me, I'm going to hit you first, let you know I've located you. The second time I hit you, I'm going to cut you. And when you see me on blood, I know you're going to hesitate. As soon as you hesitate, I'm going to pop you the third time. But the first 2 punches, I'm not going to try to hurt you. I'm not going to try to stop you. I'm just going to locate the target and cut you. And these little gloves that they're wearing, they're called mixed martial art gloves, they kind of cover these knuckles here, but not these flanges out here. All right. So once you throw a punch, I'm going to bring my arm back this way and come out with the knuckles and cut on the second. So I'm going to be striking first, cutting second. Striking first, cutting second. And you start to see a little bit of now, when the person's in a mount position, you see him punch the gut first to draw the guy's elbow down, then come back to the head. Back to the gut, back to the head. Whereas in the old days, and probably you still see a lot of, they're going head, 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 which is idiotic in my opinion. Make sense? So I can go down, I can write a book about all the things that don't exist currently in mixed martial arts, but if I put it out now, then they're going to start doing it, and I'll have to come up with something new, so we'll cut it there. And I got a low IQ, so I keep my answers short. Only got a couple answers. If he kept going, sooner or later I'd come back to give him the same answers I gave him to the other person.
We'll see if that happens.
You don't believe me? I go watch my boy Alan Branch or somebody else training, and I say, well, somebody's doing it right. Hi, I'm Joe Lewis, a former world heavyweight kickboxing champion, also a karate champion. I'm here with one of my black belts. Been working together for a couple of decades, Alan Branch. Now, after we've been sparring and beating the heck out of each other for a couple of decades, I think it's time to turn around and start teaching some of this material we've been working on. We call it Fit to Fight, correct?
Yes, sir.
And I want to let you know, what we teach does not come off of a desktop, does not come from some theory. It came out of the battlegrounds. It came from the firing lines. And I was able to make my material work against the best fighters in the world. We think it's cutting edge. There's nothing like it out there on the market. And I suggest if you want to upgrade both your teaching skills and your fighting skills, but most importantly, your self-confidence, all right, and your self-esteem, check into what we have to offer.